Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Matt Alexander. Matt, welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Matt, I'm going to out myself. When I reached out to you, I thought you were just an ordinary rank and file Canadian like me. I didn't realize that you were Josh's father. I knew who you were. I've actually met you in person, but for whatever reason, because of your avatar, I didn't make the connection. So my apologies.
Gotcha. Well, I am just a regular, ordinary Canadian. Yeah, I just happen to have a bit of an interesting story to what's gone on the last couple of years. But yeah, no, I'm glad to be here, Payman, for sure.
Well, I guess just to get things started, by way of telling a little bit about who you are, maybe if we could just jump into your story, how you got canceled as a teacher.
Sure. Yeah. So before people knowing me in the public arena, I was better known as Josh Alexander's father. The 16-year-old kid who was at a high school in Eastern Ontario and said that God created male and female, and those girls should not have boys in their washroom. And that caused a bit of a ruckus. Long story short, he got removed permanently from school and not able to return. Has been in court and fined tens of thousands of dollars for court costs and trying to fight the school board, who just won't back down. And so that was sort of what people knew me as. Oh, that's Josh Alexander's dad. But a couple of years ago, a little after Josh's story broke, I was a school teacher, as was my wife, in the neighboring school board. And the board suspended both of us. And again, long story short, they came around, they said, okay, we would like you to agree to celebrate and affirm LGBTQ with kids and staff in the classroom. And we're Christians, and we said, no, we're not going to do that. And we're going to stand on our beliefs. And they up and fired us just like that. So then the union, who was supposed to be there to protect us, dropped us. They worked with the school board a little bit, and then they dropped us. They said they wouldn't go to arbitration for our case, and they wouldn't defend the violation of our charter rights and our human rights. So we are currently taking on the school board at the Human Rights Tribunal, and we're taking on the teachers union, ETFO, at the Labor Board. So we're live in the courts with them.
All right. I have, I'm sure you've told this story countless times, so I won't dwell on it too much, but I do have some follow-up questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
You, your wife, and I think you have two sons?
Three sons, actually, yeah.
Three sons, sorry. Did you guys grow up in like a community where everyone supported each other, or did you grow up more independent? I'm trying to get a sense if the community supported you or they vilified you.
The local community here, by and large, very few will even speak to us. Definitely the education community. They're basically afraid to talk to us because they're afraid to have repercussions. So when I was suspended, it was reported to me that immediately after I was gone, teachers who hadn't started putting rainbows on their classroom doors and on their chalkboards, sort of marking their doorposts to avoid judgment from HR. There were a lot of people, they were afraid to talk to me. I'm sure there's been some bad mouthing going on, and others who weren't close to me, and they certainly won't talk to me. But that's the general environment. We live in a society that's really afraid to speak their minds. And even though people aren't on board with various issues, various of the narratives that leadership puts forth, people are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to associate, and it's very real. There's kind of a level of ostracism that's gone on.
What's the timeline we're looking at here? Is this pre-COVID?
Nope. This happened in 2023. It's been 2 years since we were fired.
And was this just like COVID, where you went against government policy, and then all of a sudden you were persona non grata?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, I mean, even that phrase, we went against it. I'm not even sure what you say with that. Like, I'm a Christian. I'm active. I've been preaching. I've been a pastor, a missionary. So my life is my life, and I've always had my opinions and always preached what I believed. I've done a lot of evangelization in the community. That's nothing new. That's gone on for 20 years. That's not new. What happened, what changed was the introduction of this DEI narrative, right? This rainbow narrative. And that caused, I guess, introduced the opportunity for friction. And then when Josh said, look, we can't have boys in the girls' washroom. Well, I mean, that just exploded a powder keg. This DEI thing had been brewing for a number of years, basically since 2016, 17 is when this stuff really started to be pushed in the schools. And after that happened, they suspended us. I mean, for me, they just suspended me supposedly because somebody, an anonymous Twitter account or TikTok or some account said something about me. So they suspended me and investigated. My wife, I don't know if you're familiar with her, she was not suspended. She walked into her classroom. She was teaching kindergarten at the time. She goes at, whatever it is, 8 a.m. or something. She walks up to her classroom door and there's a rainbow flag on her door that, she didn't have that on her door. That's just appeared overnight. There's a rainbow flag on her door. And so she just took it down, walked into her classroom, got ready for the day. Kids came in, she started teaching, and she's called to the office, and the superintendent was waiting and asked the question, did you take that flag down? She said, well, yes, I did. And the superintendent said, you're suspended under investigation. The flag wasn't on all the other classrooms. It wasn't a mandatory thing. Somebody stuck it on the door. She removed it, and that was reason for suspension and eventually termination.
Is this kind of like, I'm going to use the word purge, and I don't mean like that Hollywood movie. It's kind of like you purge a system. Is this, you guys are the old timers, so the older generation, and they've already indoctrinated a new generation of teachers to come up, and they're systematically getting rid of you, or were you just a one-off? How widespread is this in the education system?
It's not widespread. It's not widespread because nobody will say anything. You have again, as I said, you've got a society where everyone is afraid to speak their mind. Most definitely, if you are in a profession where you're bound by a college or a licensing bureau, any government job where you've got a union and a pension on the line, if you speak up, you're going to be targeted. And that's why teachers don't say anything. I mean, you've got, I don't even know the number. There must be approaching 200,000 teachers in Ontario, or well over 100,000 teachers. And how many teachers have lost their positions due to the LGBTQ issue? I believe it's under 5, and my wife and I are 2 of them. So that tells you something. Nobody is willing to speak because they know we're the example, right? If you speak, or if you even, and we didn't even really openly speak, if you're associated with a Christian viewpoint, a traditional viewpoint, you're canceled.
But just to be clear, it's not just that you had a Christian viewpoint. If you were Christian and you kept your opinions to yourself, they wouldn't have minded. Like if It was somebody who was secular and they would, it's their new religion is LGBTQ, and you're a threat to them essentially.
It's the state religion, and as long as you're silent about it, that's fine. But as soon as your opinion is known, you're gone. And in our case, it was our son. Our son said something. Our son was a student in a different school board. And, what the relation was there, I don't know. I can't really, I don't know what's in the thoughts of the administrators in my board, but when his thing blew up, they looked to us. And, again, like what happened to my wife, that's just absolutely outrageous. She took down a poster on her door, which she had authority over, and was then fired without any question, discussion. She actually asked the superintendent, was that a mandatory thing to have on the door? And superintendent said, we'll talk about that later.
They never answer these questions because they know legally it could lead to problems.
100%. Yeah.
So the superintendent, what age range are we talking about? Like, did the superintendent believe in LGBTQ, or was that superintendent following orders as well?
Well, I can't speak to what the superintendent believes. I mean, she's online holding rainbows and posing for pride events and everything. So read into that what you want. What does she believe in her heart? I don't know. I don't know. We're talking about a woman, I guess, in her 50s, I would presume.
You know, you and I were talking about how people are scared to speak out, but whenever people in my community, at least during the election, when they reached out to me, they said like, "Hey, man, my son has a teacher that's like this, or they're teaching this in school," and I'm like, "Whatever you do, don't speak out. Like, you got enough problems as is. They will destroy you. Leave it to me."
There's some pretty crazy stories of things that have happened in the community when parents, not even on that issue, on other things. If parents ruffle feathers, there are things that happen, and a lot of parents are terrified to speak. And the shocking thing is they're sending their kids into this lion's den. And I always say that our parents don't know what's happening behind those school doors, and if they did, it would really open people's eyes. And I stand on that. They don't really know what's going on, but they do know that what's going on isn't good. That's generally understood. And yet they send their kids in and they zipper their mouths shut, and they're not looking out for their kids. People need to stand up. They need to stand up and speak up and be willing to take whatever risk there might be. And you know what, if you're going to get some flack in the community or whatever, it's time to take it, because the country is slipping away.
I always tell the story. I was born in Iran, and Iran it's like the state's not. It wasn't that big back then. They had corporal punishment, and one of the teachers, I guess, spanked one of the kids a little too hard, and the father was a boxer, and he went to school the next day. And he knocked out the teacher. Now I know you're a teacher. I'm not advocating to beat up teachers, but you don't really have that same culture of fathers, particularly standing up for their kids, I guess.
It's true. Well, but yeah, it would make a big difference if people even got involved. I mean, really involved. Get in there and ask questions. What's going on? And talk to your students, your child's teacher. Talk to the principals. Talk to the board administration. Find out what's going on. Put some pressure on them. And we've seen, and especially in the U.S., and I've seen out in BC, you guys have had a pretty good organization of parents that have moved forward and put some pressure on school boards. Get a little wild sometimes, but we need to ask these questions. We need to ask what's going on and demand some accountability.
So last question, but before I do, if for people watching, if you could share this stream, it would really help us boost our numbers. Switching over to the union and the Human Rights Commission, I get the Human Rights Commission is full on a government court system. It's an executive court, so you're at their mercy of the people that are attacking you. But I feel like the unions have also imploded into the government. Oh, we lost you. Give you a couple minutes.
Sorry.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I was just streaming there, and it kicked me out or something. So.
No, that's fine. I don't know if you heard. I said the Human Rights Commission is basically an executive court. The unions have imploded into the executive, the government as well. And that's not just me saying that. I've talked to a lot of people whose unions threw them under the bus. What was your impression?
Well, the union, so the school boards promote all the DEI stuff intensely, right? They do this. But the union does it as much or more. And all you need to do is look on the any unions, well, my union, not any union, but my union's social media feed, and it's rainbow and anti-racism and every culture and religion, but anything that's traditionally Canadian, anything that's Christian, anything but. So they push this stuff, and it's if you look at what their agenda is and what their worldview is, for them to support my wife and I, it seems to be a conflict, because we stand against the very things that they promote. We were told by our union, they acknowledged, the union's lawyer acknowledged, well, yeah, there were charter rights violations, they acknowledged that, but they said they wouldn't defend them. And we asked for a reason. They wouldn't really get it. The best they would tell us was, well, we have to look at the needs of all union members and not just yourselves. And they weigh all that out, and their decision was that it wasn't in their benefit, I guess, to defend us. So that to me, that says something about their worldview, their mindset, where they're coming from. And yeah, I mean, the unions, it would seem to me, are captured by this. Essentially, it's a Marxist movement across the West that we're seeing, and they are one of the biggest engines of its promotion.
I just came back from the dentist earlier today. The dentist, they provide a service. They can't force like their worldview on me if they're polygamists or whatever. You're there for a service. It's the same thing with a union. Like they're there to essentially give you legal advice, maybe bargaining power. It doesn't make sense to me that they're pushing ideologies.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But they do. I mean, it used to be that we needed unions to, defend the workers, stop people from sending kids down chimney sweeps and stuff like that. And that's understandable. But they have become politicized organizations. And that's what they're all about. That's what they're all about. They are political. They're no longer, in my opinion, even really connected to the benefits of the workers. And they'll look after basic working conditions, and they'll look after salary grid raises. But when my experience is when you watch teachers, for example, who run into issues with the board and there appear to be violations of the contract, very often they go ignored. You've got a relationship going on between unions and employers that is, I would say, a little less adversarial than maybe it was in decades past. And they seem to be running the same track and working towards the same goals. The workers are second.
It's like life is just getting worse. It's the purpose of unions to sort of shore up the salaries, but the debt's going up. There's rampant inflation. I was talking to Sue Sproul. She was working for Air Canada, and she got sexually assaulted by her superior, and they did nothing, and she tried to take him to court. They took her pension away. This is absurd.
It is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. Again, you go back to COVID and you look at where were the unions. By and large, there were some exceptions, but where were the unions in terms of the jab? They just
Speak of the devil. My union threw me under the bus when I protested against the draconian COVID mandates. RB Ham is he's an industrial truck driver.
Right. Yep, that happened across the country. They weren't there to protect the workers and protect working conditions. They were right in on the narrative, pushing the same message that the government and the employer was, and the health unit. It was unified. So,
can I ask, how many years were you a teacher?
23 years.
And you mentioned that things got really bad in 2016, at least with LGBTQ.
Yeah, that's when, so I got hired by my school board back in 2000, worked a year before that in another board. This stuff it didn't exist. It didn't exist whatsoever. It was 2016 or 17, whichever year it was, where they introduced, the board introduced guidelines for dealing with LGBTQ gender ideology. And it was introduced, but it's not like we had to sign on to agree to it. It was just something that just kind of came along, and it was, here it is, here's what's going on. And as a classroom teacher, it didn't affect my day. I mean, I treated all my kids the same, and everything was fine. It really wasn't an issue for me until they called me in and said, you're suspended, and do you agree to uphold these gender guidelines? And then we said no. So
the reason I ask is Catherine Kowalczyk, she's out in Alberta. She ran as politically as well. We can thank the decades-long progressive programming. Do you think this doesn't have to be mutually exclusive? Is it just the indoctrination that happens in education system, public education, higher education? Or is this Justin Trudeau came in? Is it both? What do you think it was?
I think it's all of it. I mean, I think it's been in the works for a long time. I think it's a really multi-pronged push across all of society. But so Trudeau came along in 2015, or won in 2015. Within a year or two, you had these guidelines in the school systems. But before that, it was in the education. It was in the universities, right? So it hit there first. The Marxist left really did capture higher education. That's always been a golden trophy for them. They capture that and they steer the future from there. You get all the young people, you train up all the coming leaders, and they use that as one of their main routes into all of society, into government, into business, into unions. It's all been infiltrated.
I never. I remember when I was in college. I looked at the judges in society, and they were almost like a vanguard class. You know, they're not even human beings; they're above us. And I thought that nothing that we did in college would ever perforate that membrane that existed. Like you could have the dumbest people in law school; they'll never be judges. But education is where you're building your elites. Like the people, whatever you teach them in college, eventually they're the people that are going to be running your government.
And by and large, that's true. Yep. Those are the people who get into, like I say, the professional working class. They get into your licensing organizations. They get into the universities. They get into the education system, and they get into civil service, and they climb the ladder in all those areas. And it's broadly captured. The military, even, it's the same thing in the military.
Yeah, that's another problem. I was wrong. RB was not a truck driver. I guess he is now, but he was a custodian at a school. He says he got fired as well. That's funny. He goes, half the teachers agreed with me, but all were too scared to speak out. They didn't want to lose their jobs.
Yeah, and I'd say RB Ham is right. I don't know about the 50% part, but definitely the sentiment is very true. There are those who don't agree. You get different categories, right? You've got a lot of educators are woke. They're completely indoctrinated with it, and they push it with gusto. You've got a lot that really don't care. They're just people. They're just living their life. They're getting their paycheck. They're doing what they have to do. They don't. It's that middle zone, right? And so they might lean a little bit in favor or a little bit against, but they're really not on fire either way. And there's a small minority that are actually, if you want to use the word, I don't like the word conservative, but they're sort of traditional conservative, maybe Christian, even Muslim, who are opposed to it by principle. But that whole middle block, they're not going to speak out against it. There's no way. So you're left with that sort of that minority on the right, and most of them, they're afraid to. The cost is too high.
No, it's terrifying, and I can't blame them. I mean, for me, it's different. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm financially secure, and I'm not dependent on a salary. If you don't have any one of those things, it's very risky.
Well, it absolutely is. It's very risky, but this is the thing. You need to decide, what is it you serve? Are you serving, in my case, am I serving God or am I serving money? Jesus says, is it God or mammon? You can't have both. And you can't serve both. You can have both, but you can't serve both. And people need to decide what's more important, the paycheck or the principles, the paycheck or the country that they're going to leave to the next generation. These are big questions. And, I know a guy once who was about to lose his job, and he says, well, I was looking for a job before I got this one. So, you might just have to look for a job, but I think it is absolutely necessary that people speak. Not everybody's going to get fired. Not everybody's going to have that happen. And, we have a story of that happening, but people are in different situations, different circumstances. You got to speak up. And there might be a price to pay. I mean, there will be a price to pay. It's just how big the price will be.
One thing that's, it really disappointed me, but in hindsight, I can understand. When they went after people's children, they didn't really stand up. I'm not trying to be poetic, but nobody really stood up. They're like, whatever, they can trans the kids, but I'll deal with it. When they went after their property, and I'm talking about the Richmond land ruling with the fee simple case, they all got activated. And that tells me that Canadians are more concerned with their bottom line than they are with their children, which might not be fair, because the bottom line, they needed to feed the children.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I mean, it's a good observation. When they came after their wealth, then you got more of a reaction. I still don't think there's enough of a reaction, but yeah, they did get a reaction. But so my view is, my wife and I, we had our kids. Our kids were worth more to me than money. if you've got your newborn baby in your hand, or a briefcase with $1 million, which one are you going to take? I mean, I want my baby. I want my son. I want my child. But I don't know if everybody feels the same way based on what you're referring to. We allow our kids to go through all kinds of stuff. We hand them over to people who are frankly quite harmful to them, whether it's daycare, whether it's the school system, other avenues. We have allowed the country to be taken over and infiltrated by people with really bad motives. And what are we doing about it? We're either doing nothing, we're watching the ball game, or we're running a hamster wheel, trying the same solutions that are accomplishing nothing.
So, on that similar topic, I asked you how many years you were a teacher. How have you seen education change? I've been in Canada since '89, and from like 1989 to, let's say, 1995, it was a very small town feel where I grew up. The parents were involved. Everybody in the neighborhood knew each other. I grew up in a small part of West Vancouver.
Mhm.
Now I've talked to people. They say like everything's drifted from the municipality, the community, to the province. How have you seen things change?
Yeah, I would say if you're looking sort of administratively, the province seems to be more involved with education. On a more community level, I think people are more detached. They're not as involved with their kids and with their education as they were in past. Adults are busy with other things, and again, it's the priority. If you're going to have children and bring children into the world, they really need to be a priority. They're number one. You're bringing other lives into the world. You need to invest in them, and a lot of people don't want to put that investment in. But that's the decision that has to be made. You have to set that consciously as a priority, and bring them up as best you can. And I don't mean just with money. That's kind of secondary. You can grow up poor and be well brought up. You need to invest values, character, the things that count decades down the road. You've got to put those into your kids early on and make it a priority.
What about rates of divorce? When I was, like I mentioned, I was born in Iran, and it's you used the word conservative earlier. Like, they're socially conservative, old school mentality. And I came here, and I was a kid. I was like 5, 6 years old, but I could sense the breakup of the family unit. The kids are getting out of control. Like, what was that? Lord of the Flies. like they're running roughshod over their parents. Do you think the breakup of the family unit has something to do with this?
100%. 100%. I mean, having worked with kids for over 2 decades, you see the lives just get torn apart. You see the impact it has on the kids. It just brings their spirits down. Kids become wayward. The kids wander off into sort of self-destructive things that it's never good. It's never a good effect on the kids. And that comes down to just that essential morality. When you agree to marry someone, we make vows, but apparently the vows don't mean much, right? In our society, people say, for better or for worse, till death do us part, but they don't mean it, because as soon as things get difficult or things get boring, many people just pull the plug. That's harmful to the kids. It's a demonstration of a lack of grit and character. Marriage takes work, and that's not always easy, and you gotta get through things. And that's the family unit is the building block of our society, and to let that go is just going to let everything else go.
In Iran, though, it was just impossible. Like, no wife would ever divorce their husband. They would bring too much shame. And if a husband cheated on his wife, no, he would be persona non grata, and he would never get invited to the events.
Right.
I'm guessing Canada was like this at some point. Like, when do you think the culture started eroding, that family unit? Was it the 60s?
Yeah, I think that's where we really saw it. But I wonder if it didn't go back earlier than that. You can't tell me that the world wars didn't have a serious effect on the males in our society. You got hundreds of thousands of them going overseas, experiencing war and the trauma that comes with that, experiencing the promiscuity that went with that whole lifestyle during the war, whether it was based in England or whether it was in France and the Netherlands and so forth as they liberated. It was a pretty wild time. And the men that returned from that, they were changed by the war, and I believe they were changed morally as well. And they might have held it together for a little while, but I think that's probably where you saw the initial breakdown from the First and Second World Wars, and which then leads you into the the 60s when things really blew up.
Well, I kind of want to shift to another topic I wanted to ask you. You said you're Christian. I've met man, my memory is getting so bad. Who was the gentleman that wrote the charter, the last living premier? Brian Peckford. I met him, and I've listened to him a lot, and he says, like that preamble there, the rule of law and the supremacy of God, it's not window dressing. Like everything that follows is supposed to be interpreted to the supremacy of God. Yet we're secular. Like, what's your opinion on that?
So I guess it becomes a bit of a touchy subject. There's a lot of different views on this. So I don't consider myself a Christian nationalist at all. There's a lot of people who are, and I don't see myself that way at all. However, that said, that preamble to the Constitution is vital. The reason that preamble is there, first of all, the reason it's not there to take you or anyone else and press them into a religious mold. It doesn't do that. It's simply a statement that recognizes that the rights and freedoms that all citizens are offered are not given by man. They're given by a higher power. For me, that's the God of the Bible. That's Jesus Christ. That is the truth to me. However, somebody who doesn't agree with me can still stop and say, okay, so they may think it's someone else. They may think that God is a different being. However, the fact is it's coming from a higher power. So it takes the right to just strip people's rights away out of all of our hands, and it sets it as something that is far more important. So even the atheist who is completely against God should value that statement, because that statement allows them to be an atheist. That statement allows me to be a Christian. It allows someone else to be a Muslim, which is really critical if we want to actually live prosperous and free lives. And a lot of people tell us that Canada was built as a Christian country. I argue that no, it was not. It was built by religious people, and many of whom I'll accept, fine, they're Christians. The country is not Christian. The country has Bible verses engraved all over Parliament. To my understanding, I believe there's 30-odd scripture verses that are engraved in the stones all over the building. To my understanding, not a single one of those verses names Jesus Christ. They talk about God, and some of them reference Jesus Christ, but not by name. So it is, I believe Canada was built by theistic people who believed in God. I would not say they are all Christians by any stretch of the imagination. And the fact that they chose 30 plus scriptures to put around the building, which omitted the name of Jesus Christ, to me speaks volumes. And so I disagree when people say it's a Christian nation. No, it was built by many Christian people with a belief in God, and we'll leave it at about that, because that's about all they expressed.
That's fair. I've brought some other people on, like I brought Bruce Party on. He's more secular. I brought Leighton Gray on. He's more of a belief that it's a Christian nation. Canada was written, the foundations are Christian. I myself, like I was born in Iran, so technically I'd be Muslim, but after what the hell happened in that country, we're spiritual. Right. We're not religious people. But I still look at what I really like what you just said, that the concept of natural law, God's law. So like there's certain things that the government should not be able to touch, and I agree with you. I think that's what that preamble means.
Yeah, and when you think about the American story too, right? You hear the same thing. People say that America was a Christian nation. I think you have to qualify that, because you had Puritans fleeing persecution by the Christian churches in England, in Great Britain, fleeing to America for religious freedom. Were they Christian? Yes. And I think it's similar when you look into their constitution. I'm not as well read on their documents, but I think you'll see much reference to God. You'll see reference to biblical things and Christian ideas, but I don't see Jesus Christ as elevated as by name as the chief creator of their nation. Though I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to be pointed to something different. But I think it's similar there.
Yeah, I know a little bit about him. Like the people that say it was not a Christian nation, they point to the word creator in there. They didn't use the word God. Just
Right.
and the people that say it is a Christian nation, they say like property rights is an inversion of "thou shalt not steal." Your right to life, liberty is inversion of "thou shalt not kill."
Yeah, and that's true. Absolutely true. I mean, our legal systems are sort of formed around the concepts of the Ten Commandments, right? However, again, those commandments, they're not Christian. Those were Old Testament Jewish law. So again, it's reference to God. It's not reference to Jesus Christ, which is what the New Testament teaches, is he is God. So all that Old Testament, it's speaking of Jesus Christ, but it doesn't use his name until the New Testament. So that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I don't want people to think I'm an expert on this. I can say something I regret. I don't know. Like, we got another 20 minutes to go, and before we went live, we were talking about Alberta. I'll share my thoughts, and I think you might be aligned with this. When the Quebec separation happened, it was 95 or what, 93. I lost my mind. I'm like, how dare these people separate from my country? This is my home. And then when Alberta wanted to separate, I'm like, good. If Quebec wanted to separate today, I'm like, good. Save yourselves. These people in Ottawa are crazy.
Well, our country's changed, right? I think our perception of our country has changed. Back in the 90s, when that whole separation thing was going, any of us were patriots, right? We were rallying together. Let's hold this country together. Now, essentially since 2020, we have seen the country just unravel and become a bit of a dystopia. And so I looked to Alberta. I was the same way, 7 years ago, anybody who talking about Alberta separation, like, no, we need to hold the country together. Now I'm like, get out for your own good. I mean, yeah, I'd love it to stay together, but go take care of yourself. But I'm not sure they're going to manage it as smoothly as they think they are. So I don't think it's going to be as easy as simply casting off the Laurentian elites, casting off Ontario and Quebec, as tantalizing as that sounds. Albertans, I pointed this out when I was out in Calgary not long ago. Albertans have done a pretty good job of terrorizing themselves, terrorizing each other. During COVID, I sat here in Ontario looking at what was going on to the churches in Alberta in shock. Arthur Pawlowski, arrested how many times, thrown in jail for opening his church, for feeding people on the street. Grace Life Church had a barricade put around it. It was, locked down. Tim Stevens arrested at home in front of his kids. Like what? And then these are we thought Alberta was sort of the Texas of Canada, right? And then no, they were worse than it was in Ontario. We had our stories, but Alberta was no better and probably worse. You had a premier who said there's no way we're going to have a vaccine passport, and he turned on a dime and had a vaccine passport. Canadians kind of looked across the country to Alberta, thinking Alberta had that better freedom mindset. And I'm sorry, it wasn't there. It wasn't there. I sincerely hope they can manage to pull things together. And if that means leaving Canada and they need to take care of themselves, and go for it. I just think they need to look internally a little bit, because the entire problem isn't Ontario and Quebec. It's a big part of the problem, but it's not all of it.
You brought up the church burnings and Arthur Pawlowski. I actually interviewed him as well. His story is shocking. Most people don't know what happened to him in jail.
It's
But
incredible.
this is I keep going back to Iran. Like this is something that happens in the Islamic Republic of Iran when they come in with the jackboots and they just snatch you, or what used to happen in the Soviet Union. And then people aren't waking up to this in Canada.
No, no, we're under the illusion that we're still a free country, and we're not. We learned in 2020 that our charter was worth nothing. And it's been confirmed since. Nothing has gotten better, really. And with the bills that are before Parliament now, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, those bills are terrifying. I had a guest on yesterday, and he said something that I'd never thought of. Like, there's no law in nature that says that the government is the one that has to employ these tyrannical laws against us. We could, if we really wanted, we could pass laws to enforce, these censorship laws on the politicians, the digital tracking. But the Canadian mind, like, we're just conditioned towards deference towards government.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. What about the church burnings? Like, what do you think? Like, are they trying to humiliate the Christian faith?
Well, I mean, the whole residential school issue. It's complicated. Were there things that were done to the First Nations people that were harmful? Absolutely, there were. There's no question about that. There were harms done. Was it as bad as they've told us for the past number of years? No, I don't believe it was. I think there was a mix. I think there were bad things that happened. There were good things that happened in some cases. But it's been used again. It really goes back to the United Nations. It goes back to this whole Marxist movement of uprooting everything that is established and causing turmoil, taking away rights. So you now got your land, people's right to their title of their land is now in jeopardy in certain areas. They've indoctrinated us to make these land acknowledgements for years. And, they use the school system for that too. And now we're seeing that it's one thing to just say, this land isn't my land, it's somebody else's land. Well, now they're acting on it. And it's gotten out of control. I'm not sure where did you go? I think I wandered from your original question.
The church burnings. To me, government is religion is a competitor to government bureaucracy.
Yes, 100%, for sure. And you also had the Prime Minister stating that it's understandable. It's understandable why they're burning the churches. It's a no, but it's understandable. That doesn't help. And again, it's not just Justin Trudeau. This has been all facets of society have been put into operation to promote the agenda regarding First Nations, the narrative of what happened with the First Nations, and utilizing. They say never put a crisis, never let a crisis go to waste, right? So guess what? We have some issues in 150 years ago in how our country handled First Nations people. So let's just grind this thing and put it in everyone's face and use it to bring people down. Eventually use it to take away people's property. It's shocking, absolutely shocking. So yeah, there was messaging put out there regarding churches, and absolutely, I'm sure it's been used. We've had arrests for arson with it. I don't know each and every story, but we were told, about a year ago, we were told there's around 100 churches burned. And what was it? The number that just came out? It was multiple hundreds. It came out in a parliamentary review back a year or two ago that the number was up around 300 churches. And I actually just posted on Twitter a little while back. I can't remember the number, but it was 500-600 or so places of worship have been burned and vandalized.
If we had a functional law enforcement agency, you could make an argument that this constitutes terrorism. I mean, when the Palestinians go after the Jewish denomination, that they use the T word, but nothing here. Like, what did you say? Is 300 churches burned?
Or hate, terrorism, or hate. Pick your magic word. Either one could be used. The police have become absolutely useless. Again, this is right across the country. You got the police in Toronto telling people to leave your keys out, leave your car keys out, so they can just take the car. We can't get to you. We've got communities saying, in rural areas, yeah, we're not going to be there for 2 hours if you call us, so you're on your own. The Canadian people have been abandoned by their police, and worse than that, if you go to I've seen at different protests where the police clearly pick a side. And I've watched assaults happen, and people go to the police officers standing right there beside them and saying, "Hey, I'd like to report an assault," and they just say, "Oh, you have to go to the station and report that, and we'll act on it from there." You could grab the guy right there. You watched it happen, but they don't. They just refuse to act. I even got it on video. And you look at a guy like Chris Dacey in Ottawa. He's always putting out this stuff. He gets attacked. Other people get attacked. The police do absolutely nothing about it. And then what they do is they threaten to arrest the person who makes the complaint. That's happened to both my sons when they protested against drag queen story hours. Both of them, in multiple occasions, were arrested. They were peaceful. They were standing there preaching Bible verses and getting attacked by people in masks and rainbow costumes, and in some cases by police, all on video. And they get arrested. They get arrested, pulled out of the scene, and then released without charges. It's just the police. It's what they do. They don't enforce laws. They keep peace as they wish to keep peace and don't enforce justice in any way.
Well, I mean, you have the phrase rule of law. So it's not that complicated. Like, you have law. We're talking about legislation, not God's law. You got legislation, and then you apply that legislation, right? But what they're doing now is they're taking instructions from the politicians, the government. And so that's not rule of law, that's rule of government. And when you ask them, I find they try to do backflips to avoid saying we're just following orders. So they'll answer it in some other way, but essentially they're just following orders.
That's right. Yep. They're being told what to enforce, what not to enforce. And the people are left on their own, or worse. So
I guess in closing, what do we do about this? You've used the phrase Marxism a couple of times. The only thing I can think of that's relatively easy, homeschooling your kids. Do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, no, that's step one. It's not for everybody, but if you can, I recommend it. Do it. As I said earlier, we have to speak up. It's that simple. I mean, not everybody can put together some national program that's going to change the world, but you can speak up. You can stop being afraid. You can speak your mind. Start off with your own acquaintances, your own neighbors. Speak your mind. Speak your mind about things. Don't be afraid to say it. The fact that we live in an environment where we speak in hushed tones, we are enforcing the government and the Marxist narrative. Though we don't want to. We're submitting to it, we're bowing down to it, and allowing it to steamroll us and our children. And that's where we're at. We've Canada and the West has been voluntarily defeated. We've allowed public shame, financial loss to rule our lives. And that's just weak. It's absolute weakness. And it's time to step up, act like you have a backbone, and speak. Speak to your friends, speak to your neighbors, speak when you're out in public, speak up at your school council, speak up in your school, speak to your kid's teacher, speak to your municipal government, speak to your MPs. If there's a public forum, use it, get out there, say something, and change the Overton window. They say that they change the window of conversation as to what's acceptable. As long as you stay silent, your opinions will be unacceptable and you will be punished. So it's a choice to make.
One other thing just occurred to me. This concept of being irresponsible parents, like not getting involved with your children's lives, there's another way it manifests. I find parents, families, they just want to be happy. And for them, happiness is drink, music, dance, barbecues. And as long as they can do that, they have blinders on. It doesn't matter what's happening in school. It doesn't matter what's happening with the debt. It doesn't matter what's happening with immigration and crime. I can still drink my vodka.
Absolutely. Bread and circuses, right? Give the people bread and circuses and they'll be fine. And Canada is a prime example of that. As long as you've got, Facebook, Netflix, the hockey game, and a case of beer, you're good to go. And people are happy and they don't want to bother. They don't want anything beyond that. They live as slaves, slaves to their employer, their pension, the system. They never get independence or freedom. And they really don't care because they just roll with the punches. As long as you are compliant, and as long as you get the job you need to get, and as long as you keep your mouth shut on what you're supposed to keep your mouth shut, they get their paycheck and they'll be okay. Their kids won't be able to afford a home, but mom and dad will be okay. And until people wake up and realize that's not good enough, it's selfish and you're looking out for yourself. You need to start looking out for, at the bare minimum, your children, at the bare minimum. And that could mean some difficulties, but down the road, you've got to have the ability to sleep at night and to know that you've hopefully left something better for them than the dystopian that looks like we're leaving our kids at this point.
No, that's perfectly put. I guess in wrapping up the show, where can people go to follow you or maybe support you? Anything?
So I'd never had social media until this happened with my employment. So I'm on X now at Real Mad A. It's on the screen there. So that's the place to see where I'm at. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is also backing my wife and I on our case. So they've got some information on their site. But my site's the key location there, and we have a Give, Send, Go there as well to just help us get through some of the financial strain of it. But that's, if you want to follow Real Mad A on X.
To donate on Give, Send, Go, do they go to your X account and then from there?
At the top of the X account there,
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. So, Mr. Alexander, thank you very much for coming on, and I'll be more diligent next time when I invite people on to make sure I know exactly who they are.
Awesome. Well, thanks. It was great being here, Payman. Great discussion.
All right. Take care, and a big thank you to the audience.
All right.